go. Okay. All right, I'll reconvene the meeting, and I'm just, it does raise some issues about the quantity of material that people are carrying between meetings. So Brigitte already just raised with staff about having some storage capacity out the back here for these kinds of meetings where significant documents are required. I think the bulk of the boxed material is for Friday rather than today, but I've just said that perhaps could have been made a little bit clearer. But anyway, look, I'm terribly sorry, Ali, and so I know, no, it's not your fault. It's just a genuine accident, but it does raise health and safety concerns, which we at the council should be promoting best practice. And well, it actually is. I mean, it's a. Well, I mean, look. Anyway, the issue isn't going to go away because I'm going to talk to whoever it is within the council about whether we can actually do a little bit better in terms of some of these health and safety issues. So, anyway, moving along, we are back to Riccarton Racecourse. Just to summarise where we're up to. So the proposal was to go ahead with the classification of residential new. Sorry, what is it?
Residential new neighbourhood.
Residential new neighbourhood zone.
That's the officer's recommended approach. That's
the officer's recommendation. The Crown, in consultation with the developer, Ngāi Tahu, is talking about residential suburban density transition zone, Riccarton Racecourse density overlay, and open spaces metropolitan facilities, Riccarton Racecourse zone. And I think where we got to is that the choices between a proposal that has an ODP, an outline development plan, if that's correct, and within the context of an outline development plan, the wider community's concerns and issues can be more readily addressed. And the problem with the other zone is that it's strictly down to the subdivision rules. One's more flexible and more interactive, and the other is more inflexible and not zones. Well, it is zone specific, which creates another overlay and complexity within the plan. Is that a fair summary?
Yes, it is.
All right. So now Vicky had some questions, and then Yanni, and then Phil.
What I'm really keen to avoid is an Aidenfield concept. So that's my sort of benchmark of what I never want to have anybody ever achieve again. So how do we best make sure that there are some community spaces and facilities they don't have to be shops, they can be anything, within the Riccarton Racecourse new development?
In most instances, it's developer-led, and they will demonstrate commercial viability for spaces. Although the council, when it comes to reserve land, that is our what we would accept as reserve contribution. That is where we have, I suppose, the greatest influence and power to ensure that there's adequate spaces, community spaces. They can be designed so we can have input, and normally we're working closely with the developers to come up with an agreed approach to the land use development. So again, it's through that process that we do it.
So can I just query that? Could we use our reserve contribution, given how much green spaces around this particular one, for something that was a community facility that wasn't a green space?
No. So if we want, it depends what we're seeking to do. In most cases, the council's done a sort of a level of planning for the area itself. So all our greenfield areas, because we did our area plans, we actually knew what we needed in those areas. We'd identified that. So it really was just getting down to the detail of where exactly and what it would be designed, and we do that through different consenting processes. In this case, I'm not really aware yet what community facilities, spaces, reserves that we need. I would need to come back to you about what we, council officers across the council, considers needed, and then we'd have to use that and, I suppose, try and work with the developer to see that achieved.
Just coffee shop for a start?
Okay, now that can probably be provided for as a permitted activity. The residential new neighbourhood rules would permit, just quickly, I think it was up to 50 or 40 square metres of public open space as a permitted activity. It has some controls. I'll just, sorry, I'm just having to find my rule. So you can do some things. Yep.
I can't believe that we can even develop another subdivision without coffee shops. We can, not because it's but because it creates an easy meeting.
Yeah. You really, yes.
But is there a difference between the two types of plan? Because we've got two choices. We've got new neighbourhoods with an ODP, and we've got a blah 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 Riccarton overlay.
Yes.
So which one is more likely to lead to a positive resolution in that regard?
The outline development plan process.
Right.
It is where we identify those local centres.
So, but we can't require it.
We could prepare it. We could go away, do some work ourselves about the key, what you call structuring elements or key principles for the area. We can go away. We can prepare our own outline development plan based on the information that we know.
No, we don't want to do that. We want to work collaboratively with them,
yes.
but we can't legally require them to do that. No. So what is? But it is through the outline development plan process, yes, is what I'm hearing you say, is the best mechanism for achieving what we want to achieve, yes, which is a neighbourhood, yeah, not just a suburb.
Yes. That's the master planning. Outline development plans essentially are a master planning or, yeah, structure planning exercise.
Right.
And that's where you do that. You can do it. I'm not saying that we could still submit, if the hearings panel preferred the suburban density zone, we can still, I suppose, make a submission, and even that some of the land be zoned local centre.
Yeah.
We can still do that.
Yeah.
And certainly through evidence we can
I think that is the indication that you're getting from us, because yeah, we don't kind of, we're very aware that it's the independent hearings panel that will make, yeah, the decision. And it's kind of like we want to make sure that and I know that, because I dealt with Ngāi Tahu over how they got to this ridiculous, state in Tamara Park, that I know that as an organisation, as a developer, they're very keen to make sure that they've got local facilities, but they're also a business, so they will be looking for the business case around these things. So I want us to be able to work in a collaborative way to get an outcome that works for everyone. Because the last thing that we want to do is to create, so Vicky's called it her Aidenfield, and I don't want another Tamara Park. I want us to have neighbourhoods where people have the opportunity to connect. And actually it doesn't matter what it is that they're connecting over, it's just the connections that make them great places to live. Yanni?
Seems to me the inherent problem is that we keep talking about working with developers, Sarah's consulting with the developers, working with the developers, but who's working with the community? And what stage do the community get to see what is the new neighbourhood that's been built in their front yard or their backyard, and how it relates to how they currently live? Because I'm really concerned that everything we've heard is a process without clarity, without opportunity for those residents.
But we've already agreed to set up this zone. We've already agreed that. What we're discussing now is, do we notify the new neighbourhood zone, or do we notify the one recommended by the ministers?
So, sorry, when you say we've already agreed, so as part of stage one, we rezoned this into...
Stage two.
So we haven't agreed.
Stage two. So
we're responding to the minister's comments.
Yes, but we've already agreed in to notify the rezoning of this.
That's fine.
We did that before it went to the ministers.
No, so what happens is we do a draft, it goes to Minister for comment.
That's right.
We're told that there's no consultation with the community. We can't talk to community boards. But then we hear that Sarah's been talking to the developer, and we've just been given the extract from those discussions. And now we're saying, well, we're going to respond to that.
No, Yanni, we already decided when we sent the material off to ministers that we would notify this change.
That's fine. It's not the
So
issue.
the issue only for this meeting is what we actually notify
Right.
by way of the two options.
Yep.
The one that we already promoted to the ministers, or the one that the ministers have referred back to us. Which one is it?
If you read what the ministers have said, at a very high level, they've talked about, and I just can't find quite the page, but they've provided very high level feedback about how we support certain things in terms of simplicity, clarity, certainty, rah. So
Yeah.
the only thing,
Which
so the
is
thing-
why I prefer what we notified to be what we notified. What we sent to the ministers, I prefer that option.
Okay, so can I just ask then, in terms of the density that Sarah are proposing?
250 metres square as a minimum.
Minimum,
There
and
is
No,
a 10
it's
metre.
Naitahu. Sarah and Naitahu have worked together to put forward some draft
Right.
rules for discussion.
And
And
10 metre wide?
yeah, so there's small sites. So potentially as a minimum site, 250 square metres is probably getting more akin to residential medium density. They're very small sites. So, but I suppose in that approach, what they're trying to get greater variance within the residential density transition zone. I think the issue that you're raising in terms of community involvement, well, the community need to get involved through the stage 2, making a submission through the stage 2 process. If they don't see something that they're happy with, then they need to make a submission on it.
And
So part of
we
that's making
agreed
them
that we
aware.
didn't have time to go out and consult on what we notified to the ministers, because if we did that, the numbers of people who've come here in stage 1 who think that influencing our decision influences the final result, and it doesn't. And we agreed as a council that we wouldn't put our community through that we would have one process where they could submit to the independent hearings panel once we've notified. So the question for us today is simply, what are we notifying on this occasion? We will certainly be talking to our communities, and I know that Jimmy and Vicky will be absolutely talking to their local community about submitting on this issue. And we will be providing background material to support them doing that. And the community board as well. This is where the community board actually gets to make its own submissions directly to the independent hearings panel. And as I've said, I will be writing to the independent hearings panel and making it crystal clear that the community boards are not representing the council, they are representing their communities when they submit.
So just so I'm clear, so the minimum density that we've currently got is 250 square metres squared?
No, in residential suburban, it is density transition. 330 metres squared.
Right, and the Sarah proposal,
It's 250 metres squared.
I see here that it has things like zones shall have a minimum dimension of 10 by 16.
Yeah, so that's in the subdivision. That's to make sure you have a workable site to put a house on.
So
It's a lesser.
What's the minimum household unit size? 60 square metres, 80 square metres?
Well, you're looking at different. It depends what housing typology you're proposing.
I'm just trying to understand the worst case scenario.
Well, it may not be a worst case scenario.
that's
Some
fine.
people like living in townhouses.
That's fine.
I spent most of my youth living in townhouses. And it's just crazy to think
But
that.
this is what the district plan should be
I
doing.
think we have to be really careful. There seems to be such an anti-developer sentiment around here, which it is. I mean, it's always who builds these places? I mean, who builds? The developers build stuff. Until we have the government building them or community housing associations building stuff, we rely on developers.
I like
to
the
build
idea of community housing associations.
And we have to build that sector, and it would be good if we could all get around that idea. But we rely on developers to build stuff so that people can live in them.
Yeah, but I think,
And then when they
have
have a plan, the community then can say, actually, we've got certain issues with this. But the idea of this amorphous blob of the community, I think it needs to be dispelled.
Yeah,
because
but
it creates
look,
a them
Ref,
and
I
us
think
process.
this is the experience that we're going through here, and it is the case on a number of chapters. Is the experience we're going through is that we all know examples of where it's been an utter disaster. And what we're trying to do is to future-proof so that in the future we don't have the disasters that we've had in the past. Everyone agrees Aidenfield was a disaster. And yes, it involved a developer, but it didn't actually involve anyone that was interested in the broader concept of what makes a neighbourhood as opposed to a suburb. I mean, I just don't know that people really get the importance of what we're doing here, but we're sidetracking onto a range of issues. The issue comes down to which of the two do we notify? Phil.
Thank you, because I think that we need a speaking sort of order. I've been wanting to speak for a little bit. Look, my question really around the Ngāi proposal was with the higher density and the smaller minimum size sections. Does that mean, in fact, there's better potential for more affordable housing with their proposal?
It has to include affordable housing.
That's if it's the exemplar.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Part of the minister's announcement at Riccarton was that a chunk of this would be affordable housing.
That's our understanding.
I think a third.
Yes, I'm not certain at what how this is being presented in terms of its exemplar project status.
Well, that's what the minister said at Riccarton with the Riccarton racecourse people and the Ngāi Tahu people, that a big chunk of this would be affordable housing.
My next question too really was around what I understood from the exemplar planning, and that one of the reasons it didn't achieve that, you'll know, is that it was traffic issues, and clearly that was one of them, wasn't it?
Affordability was
Well, affordability but also traffic issues was another one, and it just seemed to me that a real problem with more intensive housing is that, am I right, that there'd be greater and more significant traffic impact.
Smaller. Well, I mean, traffic effects get dealt with through through the outline development planning process. It gets dealt with through the subdivision consenting process. If they need to do any upgrades to intersections, that's where it may be a condition of subdivision consent and land use consent. Again, our typical approach to greenfield development or large development of sites is to identify those matters early in the process. In terms of the site size and affordability, yes, the site size is one contributor to housing affordability, but it is not by no means the, I suppose, king hit to make something affordable. Here, what we're trying to seek for in this site is variable density across the site. So we're trying to allow greater flexibility. So the officers, we just feel that the residential new neighbourhood rules will provide, greater flexibility for the developers, and that's what we're trying to facilitate. We're trying to facilitate a lot of outcomes for this land. So what are the best zone provisions to do that? And we think, on balance, the residential new neighbourhoods are.
Thanks, Sarah. And the other thing too, you sort of alluded to this just from Vicky's comments. So the concept sort of now of achieving exemplar status, that kind of is being put aside. Is that correct?
The exemplar hearings were held late last year, and the decision has been released. So this housing proposal might seek to do affordable housing, but it's not going to reach exemplary status in the district plan because that's been and gone, that opportunity.
Yeah. All right, so I know, I don't think that there's no reason to have any more questions, because, I mean, I just can't see the point of it. So I just think it's probably better to ask whether we have agreement to pursue the existing notification provision. So do we have agreement on that matter? Right.
So that's to
thank
accept
you.
the officer's recommendation for residential
Yeah.
neighbourhood. Yes.
Clear.
Open space.
Okay. So open space starts at 147.